So it's time to take a look at this circle of fifths. What is it? How does it work? And how can we use it in our playing? Let's find out. So this wonderful diagram here is called the circle of fifths, and this is a musician's best friend. It has many ways of helping us when it comes to songwriting and music theory, and I'm going to show you a few of those ways today. So one of those ways is it helps us know what key signatures have sharps and which ones have flats and how many in each key. If you remember from last week, there are 15 key signatures that we need to learn. There's the C major, of course, that has no sharps or flats, and there's 7 key signatures with flats and 7 key signatures with sharps. Of course, you've already learned 4, the C major, the G major, D major and the F major, but there's 11 more to learn. And if I was to show you them all in this diagram that we did take a look at last week, you can see all the sharp key signatures there and all the flat key signatures there. And this is a lot to learn. And to commit this to memory is really difficult. And as you move forward with your musical career, you will need to learn all of these scales and all of these keys. But you don't have to memorize this. There is an easier way. We can use our wonderful circle of fifths. So to start with, why is it called the circle of fifths? Well, if you notice, the outside ring are all the notes on the keyboard. We have our 7 white notes and our 5 black notes, starting with C at the top. And you'll see at the very bottom there, we have our enharmonic notes. At the very bottom, you can see an F sharp. Of course, an F sharp can also be called a G flat. Now, all of these notes move around the circle in a clockwise direction in intervals of a fifth. Hence why it's called the circle of fifths. So if we were to start with C at the top and we were to move to a G in a clockwise direction, this is an interval of a fifth. And if I was to bring that up on the keyboard, you could see it clearly here. C, D, E, F, G, an interval of a fifth. Now, of course, a G can be a G sharp or a G flat. And a true interval of a fifth will have 7 half steps. So if you count all the half steps from C to G, you'll see there's 7 half steps. So we know this is an interval of a fifth. If we go from the G to the D, you will then see this is also an interval of a fifth. G, A, B, C, D, 7 half steps. A D to an A is a fifth, D, E, F, G, A to an E is a fifth, A, B, C, D, E to a B is a fifth, B to an F sharp is a fifth, and of course this is where the 7 half steps come into play. A B to an F natural isn't a true interval of a fifth. And if you know your B major scale, you would know that the F is an F sharp in a B major scale. So if you count 7 half steps from a B, you would end up on the F sharp. So a true interval of a fifth here is B to F sharp, and that's what it says on the circle. An F sharp to a D flat, the same thing. This is an interval of a fifth, and so on all the way around the circle. So that's why it's called the circle of fifths, and to start with, I'm going to show you how it can help us learn all of our key signatures. So if we go back to our chart, which shows us how many sharps and flats are in every key signature, we'll start off with sharps and then we'll move to the flats. So the sharps, in this diagram, they move up in order. So a C major has no sharps, a G major has 1 sharp, a D major has 2 sharps, and so on. So if we take that order of scales, of key signatures, and we pop it in our diagram of the circle of fifths, you might notice that if we were to start at the very top on the C, and if we were to move clockwise, it actually goes in order. So if I pop them onto the diagram, you can see it moves clockwise: C, G, D, A, E, B, F sharp, C sharp. So when we're looking at our sharp key signatures, we're looking to the right of the circle. So the C major at the top has no sharps, The G then has 1 sharp, the D has 2, A has 3, E has 4, B has 5, F sharp has 6 and D flat. C sharp has 7. Remember, we're working in sharps. We're not looking at the flat keys at the moment, just the sharp keys. So this enharmonic at the bottom, F sharp, G flat, because we're looking at the sharps at the moment, we'll be looking at F sharp. G flat doesn't have any sharps in it because it's a flat key signature. So this will be F sharp. So this alone is really helpful. If we're working on an E major scale, of course we can use our major scale formula to work out all the notes, but if we know how to use our circle, we can see quite clearly, very quickly, that the E has 4 sharps in it. And that alone is very helpful. But actually, the circle goes a step further. It actually tells us which notes are sharpened in that key signature. And all you have to do to get this information is know that the order of sharps starts here on an F and will move clockwise. So the C major has no sharps, the G major has 1 sharp, and we now know it starts on F. So that will be an F sharp. If we now move to the D major scale, the key of D major has 2 sharps in it. So we move clockwise around the circle. So the D major scale will have an F and a C sharp in it. If we now want to look at the A major scale, it's got 3 sharps in it, so that will be F, C and G sharp. Again, we're just moving clockwise around the circle. So if we now look at E major, it's got 4 sharps in it. Hopefully you've guessed it, those 4 sharps are F, C, G and D. The B major has 5 sharps. This will be F, C, G, D and A. The F sharp major has 6 sharps, F, C, G, D, A and E. And the C sharp major has 7 sharps in it, F, C, G, D, A, E and B. Now, you're never going to use these key signatures. This is really advanced music theory, and most songs that you want to learn to play are not going to be written in a C sharp major scale. But the circle shows us all the scales. So the C sharp major scale is here and it has 7 sharps. Now the B sharp, as you know, hopefully will remember, is just a C. So a C natural is a B sharp, because to sharpen a note, we just move up 1/2 step, and to flatten a note, we just move down 1/2 step. So I hear you asking, why bother having a B sharp in there? Why not just call it a C? Well, for the sake of music theory, in the C sharp major scale, we can't call that B sharp a C. And the reason is because we already have a C in the scale. We have a C sharp in the scale. You can't have 2 of the same note in a scale. So we can't have C and C sharp. This is why we have to call the C a B sharp. But again, you don't need to worry about that. It is advanced music theory, but of course the circle shows us all of the keys. So as long as you remember that the order of the sharps starts on F and moves clockwise, you'll be able to work out which sharps are in which key signature. And the exact same thing happens with the flat keys. So if we take a look at the flat keys, here they all are. The C major again has neither. So F major is our first flat key. It has 1 flat in it. The B flat major has 2, the E flat major has 3, and so on. Same thing as the sharp key signatures. If we take those notes in order and place them above our diagram, they will move around the circle in an anti-clockwise direction. So if we start with C at the top, we can place them all in order around the circle to the left. So the right are the sharps, the left are the flats. So you can see the C major at the top has no flats in it. And then to the left, anti-clockwise, we have an F. The F major has 1 flat in it. You've already learned that scale. The B flat major has 2 flats, E flat 3, A flat 4, D flat 5, G flat 6, and C flat 7. Now, to work out which flats are in these key signatures, all you need to remember is that we start on a B flat. And this time, instead of moving clockwise, we're moving anti-clockwise. So our first key signature with a flat in it is the F, and the F has one B flat in it. If we then move around to the B flat, this has two flats in it, so that will be B flat and E flat. So if we now look at the E flat major, that has three flats in it. You guessed it, it will be B flat, E flat and A flat. We're just moving anti-clockwise. So if we look at the A flat major, it has four flats in it. That's B flat, E flat, A flat and D flat. If we look at the D flat major, it has five flats in it, which are the B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat and G flat. If we look at the F sharp major, it has six flats in it. And if we look at the C flat major, it has seven flats in it. Now that last flat in the C flat major is an F flat, which of course is the note of E. Because if you flatten an F, if you go down half a step, you land on E. They've not even bothered putting that into this diagram because it's just never used. Nobody ever writes anything in the C flat major scale. Why bother? But it's there, it's on the circle, it's part of music theory. But I can put that F flat in there for you, but you're never really going to come across an F flat. So this is how the circle shows us how to find any key signature out of all 15, which is a really, really handy thing to be able to do. I have this diagram up on my wall when I'm playing piano because it's not just really helpful for key signatures, there's many other ways this diagram can help us. So if you want to remember the order of sharps and the order of flats and you're worried you might not have the circle to hand, there is a rhyme you can use to help you remember them. I was taught this rhyme when I was learning the piano. So for the order of sharps, F, C, G, D, A, E and B, and the order of flats, B, E, A, D, G, C, F, you just need to remember one rhyme. And that rhyme is Father Charlie goes down and ends battle. And the reason you only need to learn the one rhyme is because if you were to read those sharps backwards, B, E, A, D, G, C, F, that's the order the flats are in. So you can say this rhyme backwards to know your order of flats. Battle ends and down goes Charlie's father. So there's many different rhymes and lots of piano teachers have come up with their own rhymes, but this is how I was always taught it as a child. And I always remember, Father Charlie goes down and ends battle. So if you do want something to help you remember the order of sharps and flats, then there you have it. So next, there's another way that this circle can really help us when playing music, and what so many hundreds of musicians use it for is to help them write chord progressions. And we touched on this last week. If you remember, we looked at the 1, 5, 6, 4 chord progression, and this is the chord progression I taught you at the very start. In C major, it's the 1 chord C, the 5 chord G, the 6 chord A minor and the 4 chord F. And if you take a look at the circle, the number 1 chord is C, the number 5 chord is directly to the right of it because of course it's the circle of fifths, so the 5th note of the scale is G, that's the 5th chord. The number 6 chord is the relative minor, which is the A minor, and the number 4 chord is the F. So we have 1, 5, 6, 4 in a very handy little pattern here. So what this means is we can now play the 1, 5, 6, 4 chord progression from any note in any key. And as I told you before, there are hundreds and hundreds of pop songs which use this 1, 5, 6, 4 chord progression, but not all of them are written in C major. So if you come across a song that you want to play which uses the 1, 5, 6, 4 chord progression, but that's in a different key, then all you have to do is use that note as the starting note. So if you found a song that's written in the key of A major, you know that the A will be chord number 1, directly to the right of it will be chord number 5, directly to the left of it will be chord number 4, and then the relative minor will be beneath the number 1 chord. And we can do this all the way around the circle. So if there's a song written in A flat major, for instance, we know that directly to the left of it will be the 4 chord, directly to the right of it will be the 5 chord, and directly beneath it will be the relative minor, which is the 6 chord. So this pattern works all the way around the circle. And the reason these notes are clustered so close together is because we know that these chords work well together. The rule of thumb with the circle is if you're picking chords to write a song, if the chords are closer together, they will work better together. So you wouldn't really write a C going to an F sharp. These 2 chords are on the opposite sides of the circle, which tells us that they probably don't work very well together. And as you've probably noticed in a lot of music, musicians like to do big key changes or change the key in a music. You know, Westlife did this all the time. In their last chorus, they would suddenly up the key and go a note higher, you know, to create tension in the song and give it this massive big ending, which sounded wonderful. But you can't just go from any key to another key if it doesn't sound very good. And if you were to move from a key of C to a key of F sharp, it might not sound that good. But you could use the circle and maybe slowly make your way to an F sharp. If you really wanted to move from a C to an F sharp, you might change from a C to a G first, and then maybe from a G to an A, and then maybe an A to a B, and then finally end up at the F sharp. So it's easier on the ear as you're slowly moving your music. So that's another way that we can use the circle, by picking chords which are close to each other to create songs and write chord progressions. And even though there's lots of different ways you can use the circle, I'll just give you one more example. So as I said earlier, the outside ring of the circle shows us all of our notes and all of our major key signatures. But the inner circle, the circle in pink, shows all of the relative minors. Now remember, a relative minor has exactly the same notes as its relative major. So a C major has no sharps or flats. Its relative minor is A minor, which has no sharps or flats. You can find it, of course, just by moving down 3 half steps. So from a C, if you move down 3 half steps, you get to the A minor. But this circle is a really quick and easy way to see this. So if you're on the note of G and you want to know what its relative minor is, just look at the circle. It's an E minor. The key of G has 1 F sharp in it. So we know the key of E minor also has 1 F sharp in it. And because these relative keys have the same note, it means you can substitute any chords in your chord progression for its relative. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's take a look at our chord progression, 1, 5, 6, 4. In the key of C major, where the note of C and the chord of C is our 1 chord, the progression is C, G, A minor and F, 1, 5, 6, 4. But we can swap any of those chords for their relative. So in our progression, we're starting on chord 1, which is a C major. If we look at our circle, we can switch that for the A minor, not a problem. Let's do it. Let's switch it for the A minor. So now our chord progression is A minor, G, A minor, F. And we don't even have to play it. We know it will work because C and A minor share the same notes. So we could do the same for the G. Instead of going A minor, G, A minor, F, we could switch the G for its relative minor. So now we're going A minor, E minor, A minor, F. But we could keep going. We could switch the A minor. So our number 3 chord, our 6th chord, let's switch it for the major. Let's switch it for a C. So now we're playing A minor, E minor, C, F. And again, we could switch the F at the end for its relative minor, which is the D minor. And all these will work. So have a play with it. Pick a scale, pick a key. It can be any key, C major, A major, E flat major, pick any of them. Use that as your number 1 chord. Pick any other chords, but try and keep them close to your number 1 chord because you know they will work. And then switch those chords for their relatives and have a listen and see what you think. And that's just another fantastic way to use the circle. So I've taught you mainly how to use it to find key signatures, how to use it to find your 1, 5, 6, 4 chord progression, and how to use it to find the relative keys and the relative chords. So before we finish, let's quickly give this a go in finding key signatures, just to make sure that it's sunk in. So we'll do a sharp signature and a flat signature. So let's pick any of the sharp signatures. Let's go for an E. So an E major. Now we look at our circle, we know that C major has no sharps in it, so we just count clockwise till we get to E. So we can see that the E major has 4 sharps in it. No sharps in a C, 1 in a G, 2 in a D, 3 in an A, 4 in an E. Then we remember that the order of sharps starts with an F. So if we count 4 sharps from F, we get an F, a C, a G and a D. So we know that the E major scale has an F sharp, a C sharp, a G sharp and a D sharp. So the 3 notes that are left in this scale, the E, A and B, must be played on the white notes. And there we have it. There's our E major scale. So let's try this with a flat. So I'll pick the A flat major. If we count around from the C major, we can see it has 4 flats in it. And if we remember that the order of flats starts on the B flat major and moves anti-clockwise, we need to count 4 flats. So this will be B flat, E flat, A flat and D flat. So we know that our A flat major scale has B flat, E flat, A flat and D flat, which means the 3 notes that are left in this scale, the C, the F and the G, will all be played on the white notes. And there's our key of A flat major. So print out this circle of fifths and put it next to your piano. You don't have to print my one out. If you just Google the circle of fifths, you'll see lots and lots of images. Some have more information on than others, but it's a really handy tool. You really will use it, especially when it comes to finding keys and trying to create chord progressions for songs. And that's what we're going to do this week. We're going to use this circle of fifths diagram to create a song. So there was a lot of information there about the circle of fifths, and you probably won't remember everything. The idea here is that you now understand a bit about what the circle does. So you can download the PDFs that I've added to the lesson, print them out, keep them near the piano. I have a circle of fifths up by my piano. It's always there so I can use it when I need it. And there's so many more things the circle can be used for as well. If you Google the circle of fifths, you're going to find out a bunch more stuff, probably stuff I don't even know about as well. But at least you've started, you understand what it can be used for. And of course I've added some exercises to this lesson as well, so you can practice using the circle.